There are moments in life that remind us what truly matters. Moments that cut through the noise of fame, fortune, and public scrutiny and bring us back to something raw, real, and deeply human. For Paris Jackson, one of the most recognized names in the world of music and celebrity, that moment came quietly, not on a red carpet, not at a glittering award ceremony, but in a simple, heartfelt selfie shared with the world. Paris Jackson, the 27-year-old daughter of the legendary king of pop, Michael Jackson, recently reunited with her mother, Debbie Rowe, in a rare and touching public sighting that sent waves of warmth across social media. The images, casual and intimate, showed the two women, a mother and daughter who have had one of the most unconventional and complicated relationships in modern celebrity history, cuddled up together, wearing matching printed hoodies, smiling with the kind of ease that only comes from genuine love and hard-won understanding. To the outside world, it may have seemed like just another celebrity photo, but for those who have followed the journey of Paris Jackson and Debbie Rowe, those images represented something profound. They represented years of separation, grief, healing, reconciliation, and ultimately the beautiful, unbreakable bond between a mother and her child. Paris captioned one of the outdoor photos simply with the word "lately" and a heart emoji. It was minimal, it was understated, and yet it said everything. Because sometimes love doesn't need a long caption. Sometimes love is just a heart. To understand the significance of this reunion, we first need to understand Paris Jackson, who she is, where she comes from, and the extraordinary life she has lived. Born on April 3, 1998, Paris Michael Catherine Jackson entered the world as the daughter of one of the greatest entertainers who ever lived. Her father, Michael Jackson, was not just a pop star. He was a cultural phenomenon, a global icon, a man whose music transcended language, geography, and generation. Growing up as his child meant growing up under the intensity of scrutiny that most people will never experience. For much of her childhood, Paris lived a sheltered, private life. Michael was famously protective of his children, often covering their faces in public, shielding them from the relentless glare of the media. Paris grew up at Neverland Ranch, surrounded by the kind of surreal, fairy tale environment her father had built, a world of magic, music, animals, and imagination. But it was also a world cut off from the ordinary rhythms of childhood, from the kind of social development that most kids take for granted. Paris attended private tutoring, had few outside friendships in her early years, and was raised in an intensely guarded bubble. And yet, by all accounts, she was a curious, creative, deeply sensitive child. A child who felt everything deeply and expressed herself with remarkable authenticity. As she grew older, Paris began to emerge into her own identity. She developed a passion for music, for art, for activism. She became a model, an actress, and eventually a recording artist. Her debut album, Wilted, released in 2020, revealed a side of Paris that many hadn't seen before: vulnerable, poetic, achingly honest. Her music drew comparisons to artists like Elliott Smith and Nick Drake, introspective, folk-influenced work that clearly came from a place of deep personal experience. But beyond her artistic career, Paris has always been defined by something deeper: a fierce commitment to authenticity. She has spoken openly about her struggles with mental health, about the challenges of growing up in the spotlight, about finding her own identity in the shadow of one of the most famous names in history. She has advocated for LGBTQ+ rights, for mental health awareness, for environmental causes. She has, in short, become her own person, fully, unapologetically, beautifully herself. And at the center of her journey toward wholeness has always been the complicated, evolving, ultimately healing relationship with her mother, Debbie Rowe. Debbie Rowe is not a household name in the way that Michael Jackson or even Paris Jackson is, but her story is one of the most fascinating and misunderstood in the entire saga of the Jackson family. Born on December 6, 1958, Deborah Jean Rowe grew up to become a nurse, a profession that would, improbably, change the course of her life entirely. In the early 1980s, Debbie began working as a medical assistant in the dermatology practice of Dr. Arnold Klein, a Beverly Hills physician who counted Michael Jackson among his most famous patients. Michael first sought treatment from Dr. Klein for his vitiligo, the skin condition that causes loss of pigmentation and which dramatically changed his appearance over the years. Debbie worked closely with Michael during these visits, and over time, the two developed a deep friendship. She was, by many accounts, one of the few people in Michael's life who treated him as a regular human being, not as a superstar, not as a spectacle, but simply as a person who needed care. Their friendship deepened over years, and in 1996, Michael Jackson and Debbie Rowe married in a private ceremony in Sydney, Australia. The marriage surprised many who knew them, as they had not been publicly known as a romantic couple. But both Michael and Debbie maintained that their relationship was genuine, rooted in years of friendship and mutual respect. Together, they had 2 children. Their son, Michael Joseph Jackson Jr., known to the world as Prince, was born in February 1997. Their daughter, Paris Michael Catherine Jackson, followed in April 1998. A third child, Prince Michael Jackson II, later known as Blanket and now as Biggie, was born in 2002 via surrogate after Michael and Debbie had already separated. When the couple divorced in 1999, Debbie made one of the most controversial and widely misunderstood decisions of her life. She gave up full custody of Prince and Paris, allowing Michael to raise them on his own. To many observers at the time, this seemed incomprehensible. How could a mother voluntarily give up her children? But Debbie has explained her reasoning in interviews over the years. She believed that Michael was the parent best positioned to give the children the life they deserved. She believed in his love for them, in his ability to care for them. She stepped back not out of indifference, but out of a complex blend of love, sacrifice, and trust. Whether one agrees with her decision or not, her motivations were far more nuanced than the tabloid narrative of the absent mother ever acknowledged. For years, Debbie Rowe remained largely out of the public eye, living quietly on a ranch in Palmdale, California, where she pursued her love of horses. She maintained a low profile, far removed from the glittering world of Hollywood and celebrity. She was, in many ways, an ordinary woman caught in an extraordinary set of circumstances, and she navigated those circumstances with a dignity that deserves far more recognition than it has received. For Paris Jackson, the absence of her mother during her early years was something she has spoken about with remarkable candor and emotional honesty. In a now famous 2017 interview with Rolling Stone magazine, Paris opened up about her relationship with Debbie in ways that were deeply moving. She described growing up in a world where, for all practical purposes, her mother didn't exist. Not because Debbie didn't care, but because the circumstances of her parents' divorce and custody arrangement had created a chasm between them that a young child couldn't easily understand or bridge. "When I was really, really young, my mom didn't exist," is a sentence that carries enormous weight. For a child, the absence of a mother, regardless of the reasons behind it, leaves a mark. It creates questions that have no easy answers. It creates a longing that doesn't simply go away with time. Paris grew up knowing who her mother was, but not really knowing her mother. There was a name, a face, a biological connection, but not the day-to-day presence, the shared meals, the bedtime stories, the ordinary intimacies that define a mother-child relationship in its most fundamental form. And yet, Paris has never expressed bitterness toward Debbie for this. Instead, what she has expressed is something far more mature and arguably far more healing, understanding, and recognition that Debbie's choices were made in a complex context out of a love that expressed itself differently than most people's love does. By the time Debbie came into Paris's life in a more meaningful way, Paris was no longer a child. She was an adolescent and then a young adult, navigating all of the challenges that come with growing up, and doing so in circumstances that were anything but ordinary. The relationship that developed between them was not the conventional mother-daughter bond. It was something different, something that Paris has described as more of an adult relationship. By the time my mom came into my life, it wasn't a mommy thing. It's more of an adult relationship. I can't tell you how much I love her. These words are extraordinary in what they reveal. They reveal a young woman who has done the hard work of releasing expectations, of grieving the mother-daughter relationship she didn't get to have, and instead chosen to embrace the relationship she does have, on its own terms. This kind of emotional maturity is not easy. It doesn't come without pain, but it comes with a kind of freedom that conventional resentment never could. The years of separation, the unusual circumstances of Paris's upbringing, the loss of her father, all of these experiences could easily have created an unbridgeable.
For full video, click related link below or like and subscribe this channel.